Welcome to the deep dive. Today, responding to your request, we're delving into a really significant scientific warning. It's a big international paper calling attention to a crisis that maybe doesn't always get the headlines.
That's right. We're looking at scientist warning on invasive alien species. It came out in Biological Reviews back in 2020, led by Pyšek and, well, a huge team of collaborators. And it's not just another academic paper, it's really a global synthesis, a call to action.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack this warning for you. We want to cover, what exactly are biological invasions? Why this warning now? What are the key drivers and the, frankly, shocking costs? And importantly, what can we actually do about it? What tools and policies are out there?
And it's crucial to set the stage. This paper builds on previous major global warnings about the environment. The big one is that IPBES, that's the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. They've ranked invasive alien species, or IAS, as the fifth biggest direct threat to nature worldwide.
Fifth. Wow, that puts it right up there with climate change, habitat loss.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's in that top tier of environmental threats.
Okay, so that ranking definitely gets your attention. Let's clarify terms first, because people often mix these up. What's the difference between just an alien species and an invasive alien species?
Good place to start. An alien species is basically any species, plant, animal, fungus, whatever, that humans have moved, intentionally or not, outside its natural range, across geographical barriers it couldn't cross on its own.
Like bringing a garden plant from another continent.
Exactly. Most alien species actually don't cause major problems. They might just sit there or even die out. The real issue is the subset called invasive alien species, or IAS.
Right. The problematic ones?
Yes. The paper uses the standard IUCN definition here. These are alien species that don't just survive, they spread rapidly, often over large distances. And this is the crucial part. They cause noticeable harm. Harm to the environment, the economy, or sometimes even human health.
So it's the combination. Rapid spread plus actual damage.
That's the key distinction, spread and impact.
Got it. Okay, let's talk scale then. The paper makes it sound like this isn't just a serious problem, it's one that's actively getting worse. Fast.
Oh, the scale is enormous. And the acceleration is really the core message of the warning. Look at this stat. Across the countries that have good long-term records, the number of established invasive alien species per country has shot up by around 70% just since 1970.
70% in just 50 years.
Yeah. And think about plants. Over 14,000 species of vascular plants alone are now established as alien populations somewhere in the world. That's about 4% of all known plant species on Earth.
4% of the world's flora established outside their native range. That's huge. And you mentioned acceleration. Is there any sign of this trend slowing down?
Unfortunately, no. That's maybe the most alarming finding. Pyšek and the team looked at long-term data, like going back 200 years. For pretty much all groups of organisms on all continents, the rate of introductions is still accelerating. There is absolutely no sign of a slowdown or saturation. The rate we're seeing now is higher than ever before.
Okay, so it's a global phenomenon, accelerating everywhere. Does the paper point to specific areas where it's particularly bad? Invasion hotspots?
Yes, definitely. There are clear patterns. Islands are classic hotspots. Think Hawaii, New Zealand's North Island. Their unique, isolated ecosystems are incredibly vulnerable.
Makes sense.
But it's not just islands. You also see high concentrations in coastal mainland areas, places with lots of people, high GDP, lots of trade and transport. Florida gets mentioned specifically as a continental hotspot.
Right, where there's more human activity, there's more species movement.
Exactly. High traffic, high risk.
We know some of the ways this happens, the sort of traditional pathways. People deliberately releasing things, like game animals or fish for sport, or species escaping from gardens or as pets.
Right, those are the deliberate pathways. And then there are the unintentional ones, stowaways. Things hitching a ride in ship ballast water, which is a huge vector for marine species, or insects and diseases hiding in wood packaging materials used in global trade.
Okay, so those are the knowns. But the paper flags some newer, maybe more unexpected pathways that are emerging because of how the world is changing. What are those?
This is where it gets really eye-opening. One major novel pathway is what they call non-biodegradable plastic rafting. Think about all the plastic trash in the oceans now.
Yeah.
Well, when big storms hit, and storms are getting stronger with climate change, this plastic gets washed out and forms these persistent rafts. Unlike natural debris like wood, which rots, plastic can last for decades. This gives marine organisms a way to survive crossing entire oceans, journeys they could never make before.
Wow. So plastic pollution is literally creating new highways for invasive species across oceans. I hadn't thought of it quite like that.
It fundamentally changes dispersal potential. And the second really big one is the permanent opening of the Arctic Ocean. As the sea ice melts due to climate change, that physical barrier between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans is disappearing.
A whole new corridor.
A whole new worrying global corridor, as the paper puts it. It allows species to move between oceans in ways that haven't been possible for millennia. Plus, you get increased shipping, fishing, even tourism moving through there, potentially carrying species along.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is. Invasions aren't happening in isolation. They're tangled up with climate change, pollution, land use.
Absolutely. The paper stresses these interactions, these synergies. Sometimes invasive species are passengers. They thrive because of other changes. For example, cities and other disturbed landscapes often become hotspots for alien plants because native species struggle with the constant disruption. You can't really predict future invasions without also predicting climate and economic changes.
Okay, we've got the scale, the acceleration, the drivers, including these new pathways. Let's turn to the cost, the impacts. We know species extinction is part of it, but just how bad is the ecological damage?
It's profound. IAS basically dismantle natural biogeography, homogenizing ecosystems, and driving native species out. Get this statistic. IAS are listed as a contributing factor in 25% of all recorded plant extinctions globally.
A quarter of plant extinctions.
And for terrestrial and freshwater animals, it's even higher, 33% of extinctions, one-third.
One-third. That is staggering. In the paper notes, this actually makes IAS the most frequent driver for those specific extinctions, ahead of things like hunting or agriculture.
Exactly. It's a primary driver of biodiversity loss.
Yeah.
And the specific examples are heartbreaking. There's the rosy wolf snail, introduced to Pacific Islands for biological control, which ended up wiping out at least 134 native snail species.
Oh, no.
Or the Nile perch, introduced into Lake Victoria, which contributed to the extinction of maybe 200 unique endemic cichlid fish species. It's not just about species numbers either. They fundamentally alter how ecosystems work, changing nutrient cycles, water availability, even making areas more prone to destructive fires.
And the impacts aren't just ecological or measured in billions of dollars lost, are they? How do these invasions hit human well-being, health, even culture?
Right, the human dimension is critical. There are direct health threats. Invasive mosquitoes like the tiger mosquito spread diseases like dengue fever and Zika into new areas. Invasive plants like common ragweed release highly allergenic pollen, causing major respiratory problems for millions. Then you have poisonous species. Think of the cane toad in Australia or venomous lionfish spreading in the Atlantic.
So real, tangible health risks.
Definitely. And there's a cultural cost, too. The paper mentions the cane toad again in parts of northern Australia. It wiped out native species that were important totems for Aboriginal communities. That disrupts traditional practices, cultural identity, connection to the land. It's a loss that goes beyond dollars or species counts.
It's a multifaceted crisis. Okay, the situation seems pretty dire, but the point of a warning like this is to spur action. What does the paper say about solutions? Where should we focus our efforts?
The consensus framework is pretty clear, and it's logical. Prevention comes first. Stopping species arriving in the first place is always the best and cheapest option. If that fails, then early detection and rapid response, finding new invaders quickly and eradicating them before they establish, and only then, as a last resort, long-term management of species that are already widespread.
Makes sense. Prioritize prevention.
And the paper points to countries like Australia and New Zealand as examples where they've really made biosecurity a national priority, investing heavily in border control, surveillance, and even ambitious eradication programs on islands.
To make those efforts effective, especially prevention and early detection, you need ways to prioritize. Which species or pathways are the highest risk? What tools help with that?
That's crucial, because resources are always limited. You need objective ways to assess risk and impact. The IUCN has developed key tools here. IICAT, which classifies the environmental impact of alien species, and CICAT, which classifies the socioeconomic impact.
ICAT and CICAT.
Right. These frameworks provide standardized, evidence-based ways to rank species by the severity of their impact. This helps governments and managers focus their efforts on the invaders likely to cause the most harm.
Okay, so we have the framework prevention, EDRR management, and tools for prioritization. What about the actual management techniques on the ground? We know about pulling weeds or using pesticides, but the paper mentions some really cutting-edge, almost sci-fi technologies.
Yeah, this part is fascinating. Of course, traditional methods like mechanical removal, chemical control, and classical biological control, like introducing a specific natural enemy, are still important.
Hmm.
We've seen successes like eradicating invasive rats and cats from many islands to save native birds.
Right.
But the exciting new frontier is in molecular genetics.
Hmm.
Researchers are actively developing gene silencing techniques using things like double-stranded RNA or dsRNA.
Yeah.
The idea is to create highly specific treatments that target only the invasive species. For instance, work is being done on dsRNA to control the varroa mite, a devastating parasite of honeybees.
Highly targeted control. And then there's CRISPR.
Exactly. Yeah. CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology opens up even more possibilities. There are active research projects looking at using gene drives based on CRISPR to potentially suppress or even eradicate entire invasive populations, things like rodents on islands or disease-carrying mosquitoes.
Gene drives. That's potentially revolutionary, though obviously raises ethical discussions, too.
Absolutely. It's powerful technology that needs careful consideration. But it represents a potential paradigm shift in how we manage some of the most difficult invasive species.
Interestingly, alongside these high-tech solutions, the paper also emphasizes the role of regular people, citizen science. How does that fit in?
It fits in perfectly, especially for early detection and monitoring.
Yeah.
Most countries just don't have the resources for comprehensive government-run surveillance everywhere. That's where the public comes in.
Eyes on the ground.
Exactly. People using smartphones and apps like iNaturalist or EDD maps can report sightings of potentially invasive species. It creates this massive, low-cost, long-term monitoring network. That data can be absolutely vital for triggering rapid response efforts before a species gets out of control.
So technology and public engagement working together. Now, looking ahead, the paper introduces a really sobering concept, the invasion debt. What exactly is that?
The invasion debt is, well, it's crucial for planning. It acknowledges that even if we stopped all new introductions today, we'd still face escalating problems from species already here.
Because they haven't spread fully yet.
Right. Many introduced species have a lag phase. They arrive, hang around at low numbers for years, sometimes decades, and then suddenly explode and become invasive. The debt is the future impact from these already present species whose harmful effects haven't fully materialized yet. We basically already borrowed against future ecological stability, and the bill will come due.
And that future impact needs to be factored into today's strategies.
Absolutely. We can't just focus on preventing new arrivals. We have to anticipate and plan for the spread and impact of species that are already lurking.
What are the biggest unknowns or challenges researchers face when trying to forecast this debt and future invasions generally?
The biggest challenge is complexity. Predicting how invasive species will interact with other global changes, climate change, land use, economic development is incredibly difficult. These things don't happen in isolation. They amplify each other.
The synergies again.
Exactly. And the models struggle with those nonlinear interactions. But perhaps the most critical knowledge gap highlighted is our lack of understanding about alien pathogens, viruses, bacteria, fungi. We know much less about microbial invasions and the potential for new infectious diseases compared to, say, invasive plants or mammals. That's a major blind spot.
A microbial invasion debt. That sounds particularly worrying. So, given these challenges and gaps, what are the main calls for future research? Where does the scientific community say we need to focus next?
The paper lays out a few key priorities. First, much more research effort needs to go into understanding and forecasting those synergistic interactions between invasions and other global change drivers. We need better predictive models.
Okay.
Second, there's a strong call for enhanced global cooperation. Many developing countries are on the front lines of invasions, but lack the resources and capacity to deal with them. International support and knowledge sharing are vital.
And third?
Third, a specific focus on managing invasive alien species within protected areas. These areas are supposed to be refuges for biodiversity, but they are increasingly threatened by invasions. They need dedicated strategies and resources.
Right. So wrapping up this deep dive, the core message from the scientists' warning on invasive alien species seems pretty stark. Invasions are a massive, accelerating global problem, interwoven with other environmental crises, causing severe ecological, economic, and even cultural damage.
It is stark, yes. But importantly, it's not a message of despair. Unlike some aspects of global change, biological invasions are manageable, at least to a significant degree. The key is political will, sustained investment, and smart prioritization focusing on high-risk pathways, using objective assessment tools like EICAT and CCAT, and crucially, planning for that looming invasion debt.
Cautious optimism, perhaps, if we take the warning seriously. Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We talked about those novel pathways, plastic rafting across oceans, the newly opened Arctic corridor. These are fundamentally new ways for species to move globally, often outside traditional jurisdictions. So the question is, what kind of international body, existing or maybe entirely new, do you think could effectively govern and manage the transport of species along these unprecedented global pathways?
It really makes you think about global governance in a rapidly changing world, doesn't it? Who manages the biological traffic on a plastic raft highway?
Something to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.